Delighted to welcome the Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden to the show right now. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Well, we've got a good news story this morning, which is a bailout for the arts industry, the theatres, the concert venues and others. Although I suppose it's based on a bad news story, which is that we haven't got a date yet for them to reopen. Tell us about the bailout and why it's needed.
Well, essentially, it's needed to help them weather the storm. So if you think about it, arts and culture are the heart of our nation, from the sort of soul in terms of Shakespeare to Ed Sheeran, through to making us an economic powerhouse. We really are a superpower for the creative industries. So it's essential that we retain that capacity while they're in a very difficult period of time. And that's why we've announced this unprecedented package, biggest injection in culture in our nation's history and bigger than almost anywhere else around the world.
And where's that money actually going to? Because there'll be a lot of big theatres. We know Royal Albert Hall, we're going to talk to their chief executive a little bit later, been threatening they could go under. Some theatres, one in Southampton, already gone under. Is it the theatres, the venues themselves who are going to get the money? What about the events companies, the production companies who put the theatres, the plays on, the pantos on and the like?
Well, first of all, it's across all of our cultural sectors. So it will be everything from protecting our great national museum, so British Museum, the Tate and so on, through to our big internationally and nationally significant cultural institutions. Royal Albert Hall would be a good example of that. But the other really important thing about this is it's also for all parts of the UK. So particularly if you're in a part of England, for example, where you haven't got, you've only got a gallery or a theatre, you lost that, it'd have a huge impact on your access to culture. So that's another important criteria. In terms of where it's going, this is about protecting the institutions themselves, basically, so they can survive this difficult period this financial year, so that then they can, restore afterwards.
Okay, well, when will that afterwards be? You know, Panto season is absolutely crucial. I mean, everyone's talking about the opera and the ballet and the fine arts, but actually, vast majority of people who go to the theatre every year will be going to see Panto. Can we be sure, for instance, that theatres and venues will be able to reopen for Panto season?
Well, you're absolutely right to highlight Panto. It was certainly my first experience of the theatre, and it's probably my children's first experience of the theatre as well.
Oh, no, it isn't. I couldn't resist, sorry.
Julia, that is part of the problem, you see, because with Panto, 1,000 kids shouting, "He's behind you," or "Oh, no, he isn't," is quite a challenge in terms of spread of COVID. So we're working intensively with public health officials to look at measures we could take to mitigate and make theatres safer. So, for example, I was at the London Palladium with Andrew Lloyd Webber just last week looking at what they've done in South Korea. But I have to say to you, getting to a point where you have no social distancing in theatres is some way off yet. I think we will be able to quite soon get to a point where you can have outdoor performances and indeed socially distant performances and pilots for having other measures. But getting to that full restoration, particularly in these crowded Victorian theatres with challenges with airflow and so on, it's quite a way off.
Is that the big issue then? Because a lot of people are wondering, how come they're allowed to go to the pub, go to a restaurant, kids go back to school without social distancing in the autumn, and yet someone can't go and sit in a theatre? What is the crucial issue there?
Well, it's a number of factors. So first of all, it is social distancing. So if you take pubs, restaurants and so on, they are observing and should be observing 1 metre social distancing at least. If you take schools, there will still be some element of bubbling with it. Theatres present further challenges in terms of the actors and the spray and all the touch surfaces. We're working through all of those, and I hope we'll be able to mitigate most of them. But in the end, it comes back to this perennial issue we have, which is every sector we allow to resume, it is putting more pressure on the R rate. And pretty much across the board, we are not allowing a resumption without social distancing. So it'd be quite easy to get to a point, or relatively easy, as long as we have the mitigations, to get to a point with 1 metre social distancing. It's a big jump across the whole economy to get to a point where you don't observe social distancing at all. And if you think, I'm sure in your workplace and across offices in the country, people are observing social distancing there as well. They're observing it on public transport. So it's a big leap to get to no social distance.
Okay, well, talking of the social distancing issue, Super Saturday, big event, hotels reopening, the pubs, the bars, the restaurants, the cafes. It was billed by some as carnage, although I could only see one street in Soho in central London, which everyone seemed to have footage of. Everywhere else seemed to be quite sensible. Did you enjoy a pint or a meal out on Super Saturday, and how do you think it went?
Sadly, I didn't get to enjoy a pint or meal out, although I did go to the National Gallery. They're about to reopen and see how they're reopening their excellent Titian exhibition. I'd encourage people to go along to the National Gallery from later this week, although they should sign up before because it's a limited access. In terms of how it went, I think by and large, the British people, as they have been throughout this whole crisis, were responsible. They did observe social distancing. Certainly when I was getting to and from the National Gallery, I certainly saw people doing that. And I pay tribute to people doing it because in the end, that's how we can continue to unlock the economy if people abide by the rules.
Let's also talk about Huawei. You are one of the few people who's seen this new report from the National Cyber Security Centre, which many are saying is set to torpedo the government's plan to use Huawei in the 5G network. I know you're not able to tell us what is in that report, but it's yet another report expecting yet another review of whether Huawei should have any role in our 5G network. When is the government going to get to grips with the fact that we shouldn't allow the telecoms company that is involved with the Chinese government, a hostile nation that's proved itself to be untrustworthy on both COVID and indeed on how it's dealt with Hong Kong in recent weeks, to have any role whatsoever in any vital networks in this country?
Well, I think there's a number of factors at play here. First of all, is my primary consideration as the Communications and Media Secretary of State is to ensure the security of our telecoms network. And indeed, there are many risks to our telecoms network. You don't have to be a hostile state. Hostile states can access our telecoms networks anyway. So it's about how we tighten our security around that. In respect of Huawei, we've deemed it a high-risk vendor, and we've already limited its ability to participate in our telephone networks. What's happened since we made that announcement is the US sanctions, which are likely to have quite an impact on the reliability of the equipment. We're considering that, and we'll make an announcement. I'll make an announcement when we've made a decision on that.
How soon can we expect that?
Well, I would very much expect to do it before Parliament rises for the summer recess, so this month.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. I very much appreciate you joining us. That's Culture Secretary Oliver Dowden there.